Nice coffee.
Yeah, I know. I've been like, my throat's been like as clear as Pavarotti like all day. You know what I mean? And then I sit down to do the podcast, and then I get phlegm. Blah, 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 blah.
Pavarotti to Louis Armstrong, right?
Exactly.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't either.
Hey, but thank you for exactlying. I feel better.
Awesome. All right. We're going to have to scratch this because I'm drawing a blank.
Are you about to go into the scandal of Clinton?
No, that was later.
This is
cigar bar.
Thanks for listening to the Wayback Chronicles podcast. My name is Noel Kurse, and I'm joined by my lifelong friends, Keith Abbott and Steve McKelkey. On this podcast, we look at the greatest events that have happened since 1970 to the present.
Today in episode 9, we're going to take you through the world events and politics in the year of 1995. And we're happy to turn this over to Noel, who's going to take us through that journey. It's all yours, Noel.
All right. Well, I drew the topic, or actually I didn't. I guess I technically didn't draw the topic out of the hat, but the topic was drawn out of the hat for me to look at world events and politics of 1995. And so when I got the topic, I was kind of like, okay, well, I can remember a couple of things that I think happened around 1995, but I wasn't quite sure. And so when I started doing my research, there were several events that happened that I had forgotten that happened in 95. But any discussion about the world events of 1995 would be incomplete without talking about the trial of O.J. Simpson. For those that weren't around in 1995, I'll kind of give you a brief summary of the O.J. Simpson saga, which kind of gripped the nation, really kind of the world, really, in 1995. So on June 12th, 1994, the bodies of Nicole Simpson Brown and Ron Goldman are found, leading to the arrest and trial of O.J. Simpson. Simpson's arrest made headlines as he led police on a high-speed chase, and I'm using air quotes around high speed because he was in a white Bronco that was traveling about, 35, 40 miles an hour, and every cop, I think probably in LA County, was following him. It's quite a spectacle. It was broadcast on every kind of news station worldwide, but pretty bizarre. Fans of the football star lined the freeway with signs and cheers of support, and live footage of the chase interrupted the airing of the live NBA finals. Once the running back is arrested, his entire trial continued under the media's eye as the presiding judge, Ito, permits the proceedings to be televised to the U.S. public. Competency of the police and racial tensions between the police and African Americans are raised by the defense team. The prosecution present the court with physical evidence, including gloves allegedly belonging to O.J. Simpson, which were found to be at the crime scene. The major turning point of the trial was June 15th, 1995, when the accused, O.J. Simpson, tried on the gloves, showing the jury that they were too tight for him. This is a key part of the defense's closing argument on September 28th. And 532 days after the murder was committed, with the trial lasting 11 months, the jury deliberated for only 4 hours. And O.J. Simpson was declared not guilty. And guys, I don't remember about y'all. I don't know about y'all, but I remember exactly where I was.
Me too.
I was in the University Center of Texas Tech University upstairs right before band, and they had the big screen TV on, and everybody was up there watching the verdicts.
I was there too.
I remember watching that like it was yesterday, and they read the verdict, and everybody in the room reacted, and I kind of kept my reaction to myself, walked down the stairs, and then walked to the music building and went to band practice. But yeah, that was kind of a pivotal moment. But that was in 1995. The O.J. Simpson trial ended, and to date, despite O.J. Simpson's best efforts, the actual murders of Nicole Simpson Brown and Ron Goldman have not been found. So yeah, 1995.
Such a crazy thing, and yeah, I remember exactly where I was as well. I was in the school of music, actually, Mr. Soda's office, and watching it on his
Yep.
TV. But yeah, I remember O.J. Simpson's attorney. I can't remember his name, but after O.J.
He had like a dream team. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
he had every attorney he could ever want on the defense.
The defining moment was really after he struggled to try to put the gloves on, and
Yeah.
they didn't appear to fit. As his attorney said, if they don't fit, you must acquit.
Yeah.
And that was probably the moment right there that sent the message to the jury. Well, we really don't have proof.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
Johnny Cochran, right?
Yeah,
Johnny
Johnny Cochran. There you go.
Thank you very much. I would say a hotly contested verdict as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. Make sure that we get that right.
Yeah, I think if there was internet polls back in the day, which I don't believe there was, if I didn't participate in one, I would probably be willing to venture that most Americans thought he was guilty.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And so this came sort of, I think, a genuine surprise to a lot of Americans, and I don't know still to this day if I can't think of a trial that's gotten as much publicity as that one did.
Yeah. No, that was definitely the trial of the century. The O.J. Simpson murder trial. So yeah, it was nuts. Other world events in 1995: the Murrah Federal Building was destroyed by a blast by a domestic terrorist. His name was Timothy McVeigh, and his accomplice was Terry Nichols, and killed hundreds of people. So, again, for those listeners that weren't alive back then, a little bit about that. In 1988, Timothy McVeigh meets Terry Nichols at Fort Benning during basic training for the U.S. Army. So that's kind of where they first met, was in the Army. In 1993, Timothy McVeigh goes to Waco during the Waco siege and decides, watching that, is disgusted by that whole Waco siege of the Branch Davidian compound. He decides then and there that he's going to bomb the federal building as a response to the raids, and plans for an attack on April 19th, 1995 to coincide with the anniversary of the Waco siege. On April 14th, McVeigh rents a 1993 Ford F700 truck from Ryder under the name Robert D. Kling. April 17th through the 18th, McVeigh and Nichols turn the rented truck into a giant bomb with 4,800 pounds of explosives. I think they use fertilizer as their primary explosive compound, with fuel and stuff like that to be like the ignition. April 19th, 8:50 a.m., Timothy McVeigh drive the truck filled with explosives, setting 2 timers to set the bomb off, and parked the Ryder truck in the drop-off zone situated, this is diabolical, under the building's daycare center, which is awful.
Totally sick.
Yeah. 12 minutes later at 9:02 a.m., the truck containing ammonium nitrate fertilizer, nitromethane, and diesel fuel mixture detonated in front of the north side of the 9-story Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. Hundreds of people were killed or injured. 1/3 of the building was destroyed by the explosion.
Crazy.
Timothy McVeigh was arrested. This is interesting. Timothy McVeigh was arrested within 90 minutes of the explosion by Oklahoma State Trooper Charlie Hanger for driving his yellow 1977 Mercury Marquis without a license plate. But he arrested him for having a concealed weapon. So within 90 minutes of the explosion, he's pulled over for a traffic violation, and is arrested for having a concealed weapon. And then April 21st, federal agents take McVeigh into custody as they continue their investigation into the bombing. June 1997, Timothy McVeigh is found guilty and sentenced to death. On July 11th, 2001, Timothy McVeigh was executed by lethal injection at the Federal Corrections Complex, Terre Haute, Indiana. And then May 26, 2004, Terry Nichols, his accomplice in the crime, is found guilty on 161 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to 161 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Was checking my watch. Hold on. He has not completed one of those life terms yet, but when he does, he has 160 more to complete. So suffice it to say, Terry Nichols will not see the light of day. So
Good.
Yeah.
that was in 95. And I remember that day because not only did the bombing happen, but there was a tornado in Lubbock.
Yeah.
And it was it was actually the only tornado that we had in Lubbock while I was there. But April 19th, 1995 was like one of those days where it was like,
surreal.
What the heck is going on right now in the world? Like, so much is going wrong right now. But yeah, I remember that day very well. But
crazy.
I don't know about y'all, but
I mean,
it was a dark day.
I believe we were in the middle of spring finals, semester finals, whenever that bombing happened. Yep. And a couple weeks later, a few other fraternity brothers and we went and made that trip to see our fraternity's headquarters. And on the way back, we stopped in Oklahoma City to visit the bombing site, and we were just curious to see just how bad it was. And of course, obviously, the publicized shot is in front of the Edward P. Murrah building, just decimated. But what the media and TV didn't really allow you to feel is the scope of just the damage around it. And just, buildings across the street from the federal building were just destroyed, and if you haven't been there since then, they have built a beautiful tribute in the memorial they have there in Oklahoma City, and just a series of chairs of lights underneath it, and there's smaller chairs for the children who lost their lives in it. And it's beautiful. It's very appropriate memorial for them, and it's to me on the level of the 9/11 memorial, if you've ever been to that. But
awesome.
Horrible day for America. We were just totally shocked that the guy that was the kingpin behind it all was already in jail.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
90 minutes after, that's crazy.
So a couple of years later, I was living in Houston with y'all at the time, and I got this random phone call from a friend of mine who was one of my drum majors in my high school marching band. And have I told you all this story?
I don't think so.
Okay. So, and I'm going to butcher it because it's been almost, 15 years since I heard this story, but she called me and she's like, "Hey, I'm calling everybody that I cared about, because I've got a new perspective on life." And she goes, "I was in the federal building that day."
Working. Oh my gosh.
And she said, "I was sitting at my desk working." And I can't remember the whole transcription, but for some reason she had to go up and talk to her boss, go leave her desk and go talk to her boss about something. When she went up to go talk to her boss about that is when the bomb went off. And she said she remembers debris flying everywhere, and everybody was kind of stunned and basically just said, everybody was like, "Okay, we need to evacuate the building." And she said, "Okay." So I went back to go get my purse from my desk, and there was a hole where my desk was. It was part of the part that got blown off.
She would have been killed then.
She would have been killed. Yeah. And she said, the crazy thing, the only thing that happened to me was a tear in my hose. That was it. And
goodness,
yeah.
dude.
So she's like, "So I've got definitely a new perspective on life." And I'm like, after this conversation, I do too,
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
It's amazing to think that, people in these events, these events seem so removed, from you. And then when I have somebody say, "I was there and this is what happened," it's like, wow. So anyway,
it's a small world, man.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. So, and I know I probably butchered the whole story, but it was just, I was stunned the whole time she was telling me. So I can just remember bits and pieces, but it was just such a fascinating thing. So pretty cool. I think I'd have a new perspective too.
No kidding.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Anyway,
never know, man. Wasn't her time to go, man. That's
it was not.
That's
no doubt.
That's incredible.
These first two world events you shared, Noel, are really compelling. Now I'm like, I was telling Keith, I can't wait to hear what's next.
I know. We're both like, I want to go back and listen to this show again.
And one thing reinforced, like, we've told everybody that the Wayback Time Machine picks the year, and then we do a random drawing of topics out of a hat per se. But also what we don't do is we don't share each other the content of what the topic is we're researching. So like in the technology episode, Keith and Noel had no idea
Mm-mm.
what I was going to talk about.
Nope.
And so we're hearing it for the first time, and
Yep.
we legitimately have no idea what the next world event is that Noel's going to share with
Yeah.
us.
So yeah, we're ready. Keep it going,
Yeah.
bro.
So this is kind of a segue really from Steve's episode where he's talking about technology, but 1995 was the beginning of the .com bubble. So we talked about a couple of those sites that were born in 1995, for example, Amazon, eBay, but there were a bunch of others that bunch of websites that started or tried to start basically back in 95 and then eventually died out. So that whole boom of, new anything.com was like major. Like, I remember groceries.com. It was like this new concept where you could order your groceries online and have them delivered to your house. Like at that time, it was like, wow, and it didn't matter if you could start a company and put a .com behind it. And you were in Silicon Valley, instant millionaire. I mean,
Yeah.
and so all of those, and there were multiple companies like that were doing the same, kind of following the same business plan. That was generally known as the .com bubble. So it was a period of massive growth in the use and adoption of the internet. So like between 1985 and its peak in March 2000, the NASDAQ composite stock market index rose 400,000%. 400,000%. Now
And they pulled a Joe
I
Biden.
feel like our president. Sorry, I butchered that. 400%, only to fall. Sorry, we're not talking about politics, but the guy does have a problem with numbers. Anyway, 400%, only to fall 78% from its peak by October 2002, giving up all of its gains during the bubble. So he had this big bubble that burst. It started in 1995, kind of peaked in 2000, and then died off completely in 2 years later in October 2002. So all those gains were made that started. So a 7-year stretch there where everything.com was like gold, basically. So during the .com crash, many online shopping companies such as Pets.com, Webvan, which is kind of that groceries kind of concept, and Boo.com, as well as several communication companies such as WorldCom, North Point Communications, and Global Crossing, they all failed and shut down. So some companies that did survive, such as Amazon, we talked about, they lost large portions of their market capitalization, with Cisco Systems alone losing 80% of its stock value. So
Wow.
Amazon had this big boom and then kind of contracted. And now, of course, they've rose to be Amazon.com that we know today. But interesting that all happened and started in 1995.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of an interesting segue from Steve's technology. If you haven't listened to that technology episode, listen to that because it's really good.
Yeah.
And then it really ties directly into really the kind of the world events that were going on kind of around the technology boom of 1995.
I mean, think about it. World Wide Web. It's a world event. So it tied together perfectly. Crazy.
Sure did.
I mean, I think really, and when we hit the 95, that, if a family didn't have a computer as that year started, there was a good chance, that was on the Christmas list, or it was, something that was being purchased. And I believe, if I remember right, back in my early retail days, it's in the early 90s or mid 90s, I think roughly like 30% of homeowners or households had a computer. And so it's still a very new thing.
Yep. The Dow Jones, so sort of as a result of the .com bubble starting, the Dow Jones closed for the first time above 5,000, which this is something that we talked about the Dow Jones average back in 1984. So just kind of continuing on, providing, kind of tracking that where the Dow Jones was in these different years that we're looking at. So in 1995 is the first time it closed above 5,000. So
what was it in 84? It was in the 12 or 13, wasn't it? Somewhere around there?
Yeah, 12 or 1300 or something like that.
Almost grew by 3 times.
Yep.
In that time.
And I just looked at the Dow Jones Industrial average close for today, which we're recording this in December of 2022. It was 33,027.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And it
So
was a bad day for it too.
I
So
know, right?
Yeah.
Down 348 points. So yeah, we've grown a lot since then.
yeah, totally.
um, Here's a couple of noteworthy events, not necessarily like life changing or anything like that, but just a couple noteworthy things I saw when I was doing research. But on January 1st, the History Channel was launched,
Huh.
which I don't know about you guys. Like, I love the History Channel. Like,
Yeah.
I know my stepdad, like, that's the only channel that the dude ever watches and probably ever will watch. But yeah, it's January 1st, History Channel was launched. I thought that was kind of noteworthy. February 9th, 1995, Bernard A. Harris becomes the first African American to complete a spacewalk. The reason this is noteworthy,
Very significant.
very significant, not only is he the first African American to complete a spacewalk, which is a very big deal, Harris is from Temple, Texas, and happened to graduate from a certain university that we all love and adore.
Yeah.
Very much
Texas
so.
Tech University. He graduated from there in 1982. So we're very proud of that. The three of us are Red Raiders. We all went to Texas Tech. So the fact that Bernard Harris is a Red Raider is a big deal. We're very proud of that.
And did his guns up in space.
Yes, he did. One of the iconic Texas Tech pictures is Bernard Harris with his guns up, and then behind him is space. So
It's pretty
it
cool.
doesn't get much cooler than that.
No,
So,
not at all.
March 16th, 1995, the American state Mississippi becomes the last state to approve the abolition of slavery.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, as it ratifies the 13th Amendment. So the way the 13th Amendment was ratified nationally in 1865, but it was not accepted by all states of the Union at the time. So between 1865 and 1995, Mississippi had not quite recognized the 13th Amendment, which I just find mind-boggling. I was reading this, I'm like, what? Okay, so Mississippi State became the last state to approve the abolition of slavery on March 16th, 1995. So thought that was interesting.
So you got an African American in space at the same time this happens.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
Great point. Yeah.
polar opposites.
Yeah. This next one, on March 31st, 1995, singer-songwriter Selena is murdered by Yolanda Saldivar, president of the Selena fan club. All three of us were in Lubbock. I swear it was like the president got assassinated.
Yep.
It was such an, I remember, I'll never forget that. There was such an outpouring of grief and remorse. I mean, a lot of people that around the city that of Lubbock that were just in full on mourning for Selena.
Yeah.
And she was from Corpus Christi, I believe.
So, Steve, you ran into her a couple of times.
Yeah, actually, I'd met her once.
Really?
And, I'll tell the story real quick. I was working for Office Max, and she was really early in her career, and it really started to build that following. And so they were setting up an office for her fan club, and so I get a phone call, furniture line 1. So I answer and hi, Steve, this is Selena. I'm like, oh, hi. And she's like, do you know who I am? I'm like, no, ma'am. I have no idea who you are, but how can I help you? And she's like, he doesn't know who I am. But of course, she was a very pretty girl. And so she came in with her brothers in the pickup truck, and they needed 5 at the same desk. And we helped them, load it up. And she's like, hey, can you all come to the office with us and help us deliver it? So we did that, and then they drove us back to the store, and by the time we got back, the store was closed and there was a Burger King in the parking lot. So she bought us Burger King, and we just sat out in the parking lot, and I had no idea that she was as popular or as well known, but it was one of those, she was just a very, very, very nice person, and no wonder she was loved so much. And and she is probably the most mainstream Tejano singer in existence. still is to these
Yeah.
days. And yeah, so if you ever go to Corpus Christi, there's the Selena memorials, and
Mhm.
uh, paying tribute to her is a very big deal in that community.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
should have gone back to your office and open up your Alta Vista browser and Google and Alta Vista'd her. I guess is that what you said
Yeah.
back in 1995? I don't know.
Google wasn't said then, was it?
Yeah, Google
Yeah,
wasn't a thing.
yeah. I think just the following year, by the way, I think Keith could have Yahooed it.
Yeah, probably so.
Oh man! All right, May 27th, 1995. Superman actor Christopher Reeve falls from his horse and is paralyzed from the neck down. I remember that year. I remember that event.
Yeah,
I do
And I'm
too.
like, man, it stinks. Superman's paralyzed, man. That
I don't remember
sucks.
it happening that long ago,
Yeah.
though. Is he still alive?
No, he died.
Okay.
No,
All
he
right. Well,
died.
that's
July 27th, on the 46th anniversary of the armistice, the Korean War Veterans Memorial is dedicated in Washington, D.C. I I don't know if you guys have ever been to Washington, D.C. and been to that Korean Memorial, but it's pretty darn cool. And
yeah.
I didn't realize it's over there by Lincoln Memorial, and now the World War II Memorial is over there as well. That whole area, like if I lived in Washington D.C., I could probably visit that every day and not ever get tired of it.
Yeah.
I love the history and the I love the memorials and all that kind of stuff. I love it. I love Washington D.C. But I didn't realize that was 1995 was when that memorial opened.
I
So
didn't either. It's one of my things that I wished I would have been able to do because my dad fought in Korean War, and I
yeah,
wished I would have had the chance before he died to go visit that with him because I bet that would have
Oh,
been
yeah.
really cool.
Totally.
it's a really neat memorial. All of those memorials are different, and unique in themselves. I mean, like the Vietnam Memorial is cool. The FDR Memorial is cool. I mean, all of them are just they have their own thing.
Hmm.
And I don't know who designs these memorials, but they're doing a great service to our country. But
Absolutely,
Korean Memorials is quite cool. So
that's awesome.
July 27th, 1995 is when that was first dedicated. November 4th, 1995, the Prime Minister of Israel, Yitzhak Rabin, is assassinated, ironically, at a peace
Right.
rally in Tel Aviv. But yeah, big event. Not necessarily impactful to the U.S. necessarily, although they are a big ally of ours.
Yeah.
Definitely something that was noteworthy.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, so so that was all like the world events. So I'm going to switch gears here and go to the politics. So there really wasn't a whole lot of politics like type events and stuff that happened in 1995, but in 1995, January 4th, the 104th United States Congress convened. And the reason that is kind of noteworthy is it was the first United States Congress that was controlled by Republicans in both houses since 1953 to 1955. So this big stretch of 40 years where the Republicans hadn't been in control of both houses, but they were in 1995. So 1994 was a mid-election year for President Bill Clinton, and so he lost quite a few seats, which is pretty normal for a midterm election. But
Yeah.
anyway, that was the noteworthy event on January 4th. May 20th, U.S. President Bill Clinton indefinitely closes part of Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the White House to vehicular traffic. And now this was done in response to the Oklahoma City bombing, which we talked about from April 19th. So, I mean, I know you guys have probably been to Washington, D.C. You cannot drive a car in front of the White House. And I didn't realize
Yeah.
that it was because it was closed down because of the Oklahoma City bombing. So I didn't know that, but thought that was kind of noteworthy.
I've never been to DC. I hope I get to go someday.
All right,
Yeah.
Keith Abbott, are you
I
serious?
haven't.
You've never
Yeah.
been,
No, that's the
bro?
one major city, believe it or not. I mean, if I think of major cities in the country, that's the one major city I haven't gotten to yet. So I guess I'm saving the best for last because I've just heard it
Yeah,
tonight.
it really is.
Road
And
trip.
if you ever go, don't rent a car. Just they have a really excellent subway system that really gets you to everything you'd ever want to go to. Like there's hotels that are right on the subway. There's all the the museums, the memorials, everything really is accessible through the subway. You really don't need to go through the metro. You don't really have to go anywhere on a car.
That's
And
cool.
frankly, I've never heard more honking horns in my life than Washington D.C. Like what? Like in Texas, you really have to do some egregious act, like a drive-by shooting, or you have to do something really crazy to get somebody to honk at you in Texas. But in Washington D.C., you need only, I think, just be on the road in front of somebody, and and they honk at you. It is insane.
Yeah.
That's
It
crazy.
really is crazy. But anyway, yeah, definitely put that on your bucket list to go, man. It's good.
Okay. Yeah, definitely want to.
Going back to the White House, yeah, I mean, it's even hard. I don't think you even get next to the fence anymore. I believe they have
Yeah,
barricades about 10 feet in front of that fence. And by the way, there's some really cool YouTube videos out there that talk about just all the surveillance and
yeah,
defense systems that are built into just the White House lawn,
yep,
much less what's in the building and on the building itself. It's pretty cool.
yep,
You
yep.
got some cool toys out there.
No doubt. Another interesting thing that I found as I was looking into political events of 1995 was on November 28th, 1995, President Bill Clinton signs the National Highway Systems Designation Act of 1995, which ends the federal 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. I had no idea there was a national maximum speed limit in place in 1995. All I knew is that it took me 5.5 hours to drive from my home to Lubbock because I had to drive 55 miles an hour to get there. And I always drive the speed limit.
Always, of course.
Anyway, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, seriously. So there was a national speed limit that was put in place by the federal government of the United States through the 1974 Emergency Highway Energy Conservation Act. This effectively prohibited speed limits higher than 55 miles an hour. It was drafted in response to oil price spikes and supply disruptions during the 1973 oil crisis and remained the law until 1995.
I didn't
So
know that.
I know I
Interesting.
didn't either. I thought that was bizarre. So from 1974 into 1995, the national government put in place this law that said speed limits should not exceed 55 miles an hour for the purposes of saving oil because of this, the issues we had, the 1973 oil crisis.
That's wild.
No
Yeah.
idea that even existed.
Me neither.
So, but one of the one interesting thing is that they put this law in place to cut down on the oil usage. So, but what they discovered was that they were hoping it would fall about 2.2%. So the actual savings were estimated between 0.5% and 1%. And I guess
Yeah.
honestly, guys, like my only question is why did it take you 21 years to discover that you weren't actually saving oil?
Right.
Like by making everybody drive 55 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So
I think we've learned the government can't do math very
That's
well.
true.
So that's
it's so true. So true. But anyway, I do remember that though, because in 1995, I was a junior at Tech, and they raised the speed limit from 55 to 70, and it like changed my life. Like I could drive from my home to Tech in about 4 hours. Like it shaved off an hour of drive time. So but I
yeah.
never knew that it had something to do with 1973, 1974 oil embargo. That just blows my mind.
I just
So,
figured it had something to do with safety. I had no idea. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, it certainly does. There was some studies and things that were done into like it's supposed to. I mean, obviously driving slower is safer and such, but there was never any like definitive like, hey, it saved a whole bunch of lives because you're driving 55, or it's not more dangerous to drive any faster or whatever. But anyway,
Wow.
thought it was interesting.
Totally. That's cool.
One of my last things is I found that on January 23rd, 1995, the Congressional Accountability Act was passed by and President Clinton signed the Congressional Accountability Act, which required Congress to abide by the same anti-discrimination workplace rules that applied throughout the rest of the country.
Wild.
Yeah.
Really, guys, the only reason I put this on there is it's like why does our government not, like, why is that a rule that applies to the rest of the country, not by default applied to our government? Like, all the laws that apply to the populace should also apply to the people that are governing, the
Yeah, go
governed,
figure.
and
Yeah.
like, but they had to sign this, they had to pass this different act, in 1995, that makes the anti-discrimination laws apply to them that have been applying to the rest of the country for so many years before that.
Do as we say, not as we do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it,
Yeah.
anyway, I just thought it was kind of crap,
That's
honestly.
bizarre. Yeah.
That is all the events that I found for the world events and politics for 1995. Some big things that happened, obviously, that year. O.J. Simpson trial, the Murrah bombing, Oklahoma City bombing, rather. So, yeah, there was some big things that happened that year, for sure. So hope you guys got something out of that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And for our listeners, is there anything in 1995 that you can recall that stuck out to you that we haven't mentioned? Sure would love to hear your feedback. Well, obviously, you don't forget that we have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Feel free to comment and let us know if there's a significant event or even a significant technology breakthrough that we missed in our last episode, or sports that I'm sure I'm going to miss a few in the next episode. Great, thorough recap of what happened in 1995, Noel. Thank you. It's interesting to hear about all these things and learn something new today too. It's crazy. Like Steve said earlier, I'm like, okay, we've gotten a couple of events and now go on. It's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very good.
Pretty cool
Nice
stuff.
job.
Yeah. So I guess with that, we'll shut down the episode for world events, and I will continue with the following episode on the sports of 1995. And I'm excited about this. I've been doing some research. There were some really cool happenings and some significant things that I forgot about in the world of sports. And so it's kind of fun getting out of your comfort zone and learning new things. So with that, thank you, Noel. And we will talk to you again on the sports of 1995. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Wayback Chronicles. All shows are written and produced by Noel, Keith, and Steve. Massive thanks to those who made these memories possible for us through the years. All songs, sounds, and effects have been attributed in the comments section and through links listed on waybackchronicles.podbean.com. We look forward to taking you way back again in the very near future.